Hi, I'm Luke, the Hard Times guy, and this is the first episode of the Hard Times Chronicles. I have reasons for doing this series of videos. The first reason is I have lots of stories and information about my family that I want preserved. I want it preserved for my children, my grandchildren, future generations. They're just things that we shouldn't let slip away and not know about them. And I've written these down, and a lot of times, and then other times I didn't write them down, but I have the stories in my head. And then there's some stories that tragically to me already I've forgotten. I wished I had people like my Aunt Colleen and others who uh, shared information with me over the years. I wished I had their counsel, and I wish they were here to help me remember some of these things, and I wish that I'd written everything down that we ever talked about. That's number one. The next thing is there are things that have stories about them, and I don't think those things will disappear. I think someone in the family will have a reason to treasure them and keep them, but the stories about them could go away. So I'm trying to tie things to information about. The last thing of the three is there are other things, not family things, but other, uh, well, all kinds of things that have stories with them. So some of these stories are my stories, some of these stories are other people's stories that have been told to me, many of them over and over, and I want those things to survive, to stay together for future people to hear and know the stories behind the thing that they're looking at. Now, those three things are what's compelling me to do this. And you're saying, fine, Luke, and we're glad you're doing that. What's in it for me? Why should I watch your videos? Well, a lot of these things that I'm going to talk about, and there's a wide range of subjects, a lot of these things are things that are for sale. The family things, not for sale. Everything else, they might be for sale. And so during the course of making these recordings, you may see things, door, I think, of something that I bought somewhere at some time, and I turned it into a sign. And then after I turned it into the Hard Time sign, I decided to use it in these videos, or at least the first ones. And so I painted the Chronicles on the bottom of it, and you'll probably see that at the opening of most of the videos. I'll talk to you about this piece of furniture behind me. Now, this piece of furniture isn't a family heirloom. I acquired it in the summer of 2016. Although it has many of the characteristics of things that I love about old furniture, its age, its material, its form, uh, it wouldn't be special except for the story I'm about to tell you. I'm going to give you a heads up. This is a grown man cry warning. I'm hoping to get through this in good shape, but I don't know that I will. I may just have a moment or two. And if it's going to bother you to see that, then you might want to just fast forward the video through to the end. You'll know when it's about to the end because you won't be looking at that uh, cupboard with the tins in it anymore. You'll be looking at something else. When I first bought this, I thought it was walnut, and later decided that it's not walnut, it's cherry. The doors weren't on it. They were standing in a corner by themselves. Some of the divider pieces seemed to be missing, but I found them later inside the cupboard. Uh, there wasn't any glass in the doors. There were no tins. I originally think it was a glass doored cupboard, but the glass was gone and there were no tins. I brought it home, set it down over on the other side there in my barn. It became a project. The case on it was sprung. The bottom right part of it was kicked out away from the shelves being connected in the right place, and the border piece skirt along the bottom of the doors, it was missing. So it had a lot of problems, but it had a lot of features too that I liked. So I decided to turn it into a 10-door cupboard, and I began looking for old tins. First got online and researched and looked for all the old tins I could find. Most of them were not old; they were new to look like. They didn't even look like old. And when I found old ones, I never could find the right ones that were the right size, and the cost on them was generally prohibitive, even when I found some that would have maybe been from the right era. So I decided to make tins uh, myself and put them in the cupboard. And I began drawing patterns of different things that I thought might work and discarding them until I finally decided on uh, some tins that I thought I could be happy with. I'm going to stop right now and go back in the story because I need to tell you where this cupboard came from. I have a brother. I had a brother uh, named Clint. Uh, since I'm mentioning him, I'll say that my name is Luke, and I was born in 1947. I'm the oldest of five children. Kurt was born in 1949. Diane was born in 1951. Amy was born in 1954, and finally Clint was born in 1958. He was the youngest. I was the oldest. Shortly after the 4th of July in 2016, Clint got the bad news that he had stage 4 lung cancer, and they gave him a poor prognosis, something like 18 months maybe. And so uh, he, one of the first things that he did was think about the things that he needed to do to get his life in order to make things easier for his family. And he set about doing some of those things. Some of the things he did may or may not have accomplished that goal, but that was his thinking. And he just wanted some things out of the way so that his wife and his children wouldn't have to deal with them once he was gone. He had I want to call it a garage. That's probably what it is, probably a garage back behind his house, uh, quite a ways. I don't know how big it was, maybe 30 by 24, maybe not quite that big. And he had a lot of things in that garage. He had his forge and his equipment for making knives, and he had some of his, a lot of his tools, and a lot of his big toys like his uh, maybe a tractor or a mower and some things like that. But the most of it was full of what I'm going to call projects. It looked inside like my building looks inside to a great extent. There were things everywhere. They consisted of some pieces of furniture, some partial pieces of different things, bundles of backing or shims or other types of lumber, trim. He just had a whole bunch of stuff in there, piled in and stacked in, and it had been there a good while, and it was going to be cumbersome to get rid of. And when you get rid of stuff like that, I mean, to him, it was valuable stuff, just like my stuff's valuable to me. You just can't do what we do without having an abundance of old things. So he decided to get his garage cleaned, and he called me and he said he wanted me to come and help him. Well, I didn't really want any of the things that he had, but I didn't think I did. But I went to help him. I mean, what was I going to do? Not only that, but I have a younger daughter, the youngest of my three daughters, Brett, who likes to do the same kind of things I do, maybe to a lesser degree. And she likes old boards and old pieces and old doors and things like that too. So I called her and I said, Brad, I told her what I was about to do, and I said, would you like to go with me and bring some of this stuff home? And she said something mumbled about having to check with the boss because her husband is a different turn than she and I, and all that kind of stuff tends to irritate him. He likes neat places, not places full of junk. But she got the okay for it, and on the appointed day, her mother and I went by her place on the way to Clint's, picked her up, and we went to Clint's. And we spent the day removing a truckload and a trailer load of things just like that from his garage. And Betty did most of the sweeping and cleaning, and Brett and Clint and I did most of the sorting and loading. And there were things that he wanted to keep, and there were things he just wanted to get out of the way. So as it turned out, I got a lot of things that had value. They weren't the kind of things I went out and bought for a great deal of money, but I got a lot of things that I still have, some of them that were useful to me in the way that we do things. There were two things there that Clint didn't want to just give away. They had more value than that to him. One of them was this cherry cupboard, and the other was a pie safe about the same height, not quite as wide, that had some really good old blue paint on it, bluish green paint, and worn with a lot of character. Just really, although it was not finished, it was in my eyes and his gorgeous. And he had taken both of these around to some of the antique dealers in his area. He lived up west of Indianapolis, and tried to sell them, but they, kind of knowing what his situation was, uh, weren't interested in paying what he thought they should be paying for. And he was willing to, in his mind, wholesale them, but they lowballed him to the point that it aggravated him. And so he asked me if I wanted them. I said, Clint, it's the kind of thing I like, but I don't want to aggravate you too. I'm just like them. I've got plenty of stuff, and I don't really need those two things. And although I like them, if I buy them from you, I'm gonna try to buy them so that I can have room to sell them again. And that was fine with him. He made me a price, and it was an attractive price, so I bought both of them and brought them home. So that's where they came from, my brother Clint. After I got that here, and before I started working on it to sell it, it sat over in the other side of the barn, inside the door, much like it was sitting in his place. He or I had it sitting there, and the doors were somewhere else, and it just was sitting there behind the thing. And one of the things that happens here occasionally is people will stop by to buy things at like yard sales, or I have a group of people who check with me occasionally. Um let's call them pickers or antique dealers, and we've had a business relationship for 30 or 40 years. And a couple of those guys over the period of time shortly after I got this had stopped in and were looking around, and uh, both of them asked me about this, and I gave them a price that was, I thought, a good price where there was still room in it for them to take it and make some money on it if they wanted to. And I tempted both of them, but neither of them bought it. So at some later point, I undertook the project and made the tins for it, put it together, fixed the damage that it had on it, tried to refinish the doors, but they didn't take stain. That's when I uh, decided the thing was cherry, not walnut. And so I cleaned it up and put some protective sealant on it and made the tins for it. I hand punched those tins from the patterns I made, and then after I got them punched, then I painted, put some paint on it, rubbed most of it off to distress them, and finally sealed them with a dark oil-based varnish. Uh, in the course of doing that, I'd say I had an hour and 20 minutes per tin times eight, just in the tins. But anyway, when I got done with it, I was really proud of it. I posted a picture of it, I think, on Facebook and started showing it to people. And one of these dealers came by, and it was actually sitting right where it's sitting now. And he looked around over in the barn, and he found some cherry drawers and bought them from me. And then he wanted to know if I had anything else. And I said, well, I don't have anything that you haven't seen, but I got some I do want you to take a look at. So I brought him over here and I showed him this, and he said, I haven't seen that. He said, I'd have bought that if I'd have seen it. What do you want for that? And I said, well, you did see it. And I reminded him of the time he saw it over on the other side. And he says, well, I'll buy that. I said, well, the price on it's went up quite a bit since you saw it last. I said, I've done quite a bit to it. He said, I'll say you have. And I put a price on it for him. And it was that one of those deals where it's what's your, I really don't want to sell at price. And that's the kind of price I gave him. But boy, he almost bought the thing. And it really impressed me that, hey, maybe I had more there than I thought. And so I don't know, the following Sunday, I think, Brett was out here after church, and I was telling her that story. I said, Brett, mentioned the guy's name. I said, he was out here, and I priced it to him, and he almost bought it. And I looked at her, and she had dismay would be a word that I could describe the look on her face, but it was deeper and more painful than just dismay. And she said, Dad, she said, Dad, that's my most favorite of anything that you've ever done. It has the memories of our trip to Clint. It has the tins that you designed and created and loved. All the things I ever said I wanted, I reject all of it for that. You can't sell that. Said, if you're going to sell it, I buy it right now. Name the price. What can I say to that? For those of you who never met Clint, And to those that knew him and loved him, I'm going to end this video with my brother, Clint.
That reminds me of that little church behind Grandma's you walk down the block.
Yeah.
Remember that?
In the grocery store.
The grocery store,
Yeah.
yes.
Brother Colvin.
That's who had the house at Colleen bought that Shannon bought.
Rodney Colvin.
Times have changed, to say the least.
They signed to that church and we're a great big class
It's
with
like the old song said. She's on that shoulder. And if she's looking down on me, I know she's proud of what she sees. Thanks to her, I'm walking with the Lord. Hear her once again, wrap herself around that hymn. Lord, if I could just go back once more in the sweet by and by.
We shall meet on the beautiful shore in the sweet by and by. We shall meet on that beautiful shore.
That's got pretty sound.
Isn't that a beautiful sound?
Yes.
I went in and I said, which I learned over time, I said, because the guy was a player that was working there, you know, and I said, which one of these guitars sounds the best? No, he took me straight to this one. He said, it's not, it's this one here.
Yeah,
And
wow.
so,
Yeah.
and the very same guitar was sitting next to it, half the sound.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, it's all in that wood. Every one's a different tree.